The Indiana Fever season just took a devastating turn that nobody saw coming. In a split second during their game against Connecticut, everything changed. Sophie Cunningham, the tough-as-nails defender brought in specifically to protect Caitlin Clark, went down with what would later be confirmed as a season-ending MCL tear. But here's where the story gets wild. The Fever's response has fans either celebrating or losing their minds completely.
All right, so the Indiana Fever made the obvious move, which I guess is probably a good thing, right? When everybody's looking for a Sophie Cunningham replacement and the same name continues to come up over and over again, it's probably a good bet that said name is the best player available on the market. That's not to oversell it, but it is to say it was the pretty plain and clear direction the Fever were going to take, needing a guard/wing to replace Cunningham, especially given how glaring a position of need that is now.
Within days of losing their enforcer, Indiana made a move that sent shockwaves through the WNBA community. They signed Aerial Powers to a 7-day hardship contract, and let me tell you, this wasn't just any ordinary signing. This was pure desperation mixed with calculated risk, and the fallout has been absolutely insane. Powers brings championship experience, scoring ability, and enough controversy to fuel a month's worth of headlines. The injury itself was brutal to watch. Cunningham was defending Connecticut's Bria Hartley when Hartley fell, taking Sophie's knee with her in a collision that made everyone in the arena hold their breath. What made it even worse was the timing. This happened during the second quarter of what would become the largest comeback in Fever history. The team rallied without their protector, erasing a 21-point deficit to win in overtime, but the victory felt hollow knowing their defensive anchor was done for the year.
So it looked like the Indiana Fever has signed another hardship player, but this young lady, we was calling for her to be signed months ago.
Cunningham wasn't just another player on the roster, she was specifically recruited to be Caitlin Clark's bodyguard, the enforcer who would make opponents think twice before getting physical with Indiana's superstar. She brought that Phoenix Suns mentality to a team that desperately needed someone willing to take charges, dive for loose balls, and send a message when things got chippy. Losing her didn't just hurt the depth chart, it exposed Clark to the exact kind of physical play the Fever were trying to prevent. Enter the hardship contract. A phrase that sounds exactly as desperate as it is. When teams start signing hardship contracts, you know they're in survival mode. The Fever didn't have the luxury of taking their time to evaluate options or wait for the perfect fit. They needed bodies, they needed production, and they needed someone who could step in immediately. That's where Aerial Powers comes in, but her signing is way more complicated than just filling a roster spot.
Now, and Aerial Powers steps in for the Indiana Fever in that role. Powers, has had a nice career across the WNBA. At one point was a bona fide scorer. When you go back to her time with the Mystics and the Lynx in the 2019 through 2021 kind of era, 2022, she averaged 14.4 points per game for the Lynx in 2022.
Powers carries baggage that would make most teams hesitate. She's talented enough to be in the league near her career averages of 10.4 points per game, prove that, but she's also been labeled as difficult, inconsistent, and hard to coach. She was drafted 5th overall by Dallas back in 2016, made the All-Rookie team, and even won a championship with Washington in 2019. But here's the thing that has everyone talking: if she's that good, why was she sitting at home when the Fever called? The answer lies in her recent struggles. Powers started this season with the expansion Golden State Valkyries, but was waived after just 2 games in June. That's not a good look for a veteran who should be in her prime. Teams around the league had passed on her multiple times this season, which raises questions about what's really going on behind the scenes. Is it attitude? Is it fit? Or have teams just moved on from her style of play?
Below what I would like from a player, but honestly, Aerial Powers is a player that gets after it. She understands the game. She's athletic. And she adds a little size to the backcourt for the Indiana Fever. So I'm not necessarily mad at the signing at all.
But here's what makes this signing brilliant. From a basketball perspective, Powers can actually ball. In 2020 during the Wubble, she averaged over 16 points per game and looked like a legitimate star. She's got that explosive first step, can knock down threes when she's feeling it, and has the size at 5'11" inches to guard multiple positions. When she's locked in, she's exactly the type of scorer that can take pressure off Clark and give defenses something else to worry about. The fan reaction has been pure entertainment. Fever Twitter exploded into 3 distinct camps within minutes of the announcement. The first group was celebrating like they'd just signed a superstar, pointing out that they'd been calling for Powers for months. The second group was convinced this would destroy team chemistry and create more problems than it solved. The third group just wanted to see anything, that showed the front office was trying to compete.
Aerial Powers is the biggest name that's available. She is the biggest name that's available. She's somebody that has had good years in her career. Like in 2022, she averaged 14.5 points per game. In the Wubble, she averaged 16.3 in the game she played. She averaged 13.4 for the Lynx. And then she averaged 5 points a game for the Lynx in 2023. Averaged 8 points a game for the Atlanta Dream, but nobody wants her. What is the issue with Aerial Powers in general? It seems to be an attitude issue. It seems to be a willingness to win. It's never been a talent issue with Aerial Powers. She's a serious player.
What makes this even more interesting is the timing with Clark's situation. The franchise player has been dealing with her own injury issues, missing significant time with a groin problem that's kept her out since mid-July. Clark's absence has already put enormous pressure on the rest of the roster, and now they're dealing with the Cunningham injury on top of everything else. Adding Powers isn't just about replacing Cunningham's production, it's about giving Clark someone who can create her own shot when she returns. The playoff implications make this signing even more critical. Indiana is currently sitting in 6th place, fighting tooth and nail just to secure a postseason spot. Every game matters at this point in the season, and they can't afford to wait for injured players to return or for perfect roster fits to become available. They need production now, and Powers represents their best chance to get immediate impact from someone who knows how to play at this level.
You're like, it's going to go one of two ways. Either she's hungry and she wants to get back to where she was and playing with the Indiana Fever under that microscope, even without Caitlin Clark playing, as we've seen with Ari McDonald.
This move also puts Powers under an intense microscope that she's never experienced before. Playing alongside Caitlin Clark means dealing with national media attention, social media scrutiny, and expectations that go way beyond just contributing to wins and losses. Every possession she plays will be analyzed, every shot she takes will be questioned, and every interaction with teammates will be dissected. That pressure can either bring out the best in a player or completely overwhelm them. The 7-day contract adds another layer of drama to the entire situation. This isn't a long-term commitment. It's essentially a week-long audition with the entire basketball world watching. Powers has to prove she deserves not just a longer deal with Indiana, but a spot in the league at all. If she struggles or causes problems, she could be out of the WNBA entirely. If she excels, she might have just saved her career and helped the Fever make a playoff push. The comparison between what the Fever lost and what they gained tells the whole story. Cunningham was all about defense, hustle, and making life miserable for opposing stars. She wasn't going to drop 20 points, but she'd take a charge, hit the big three, and make sure nobody pushed Caitlin Clark around without consequences. Powers brings the complete opposite skill set. She's a natural scorer who can put her head down and get buckets, but defense has never been her calling card. That creates a fascinating dynamic where Indiana might have to outscore teams instead of stopping them. The overseas footage that's been circulating shows Powers hasn't lost a step during her time away from the WNBA. She was dropping 20-point games regularly, hitting threes with confidence, and looking like the player who once averaged 16 per game in the Wubble. The question everyone's asking is whether she can translate that success back to the faster, more physical WNBA pace after being away from the league. 7 days doesn't give you much margin for error or time to shake off rust. What makes this situation even more intense is how it affects team chemistry in the middle of a playoff race. Indiana's locker room has dealt with injuries, inconsistent play, and the pressure that comes with having the league's biggest star. Now they're asking everyone to adjust to a new player with her own reputation and playing style. Some veterans might embrace the help, while others could worry about minutes and roles getting shuffled. Chemistry issues have destroyed seasons before, and the Fever can't afford any internal drama. The financial reality behind this move shows just how desperate things have gotten. Hardship contracts are basically the WNBA equivalent of hiring temporary workers. You're paying someone to fill a need without any long-term commitment. For a franchise trying to build around Caitlin Clark's timeline, relying on 7-day auditions instead of solid roster construction is a clear sign that things haven't gone according to plan. It's survival mode, disguised as strategic planning. Powers knows this is probably her last real shot at staying relevant in the WNBA, At 30 years old with baggage following her around the league, there aren't going to be many more opportunities like this one. The pressure of knowing your career might depend on 7 days of basketball could either paralyze a player or bring out their absolute best. Everything she's worked for in 9 professional seasons comes down to how she performs with everyone watching and judging every possession. So what's the verdict on this wild move? Indiana had no choice but to take this gamble. With injuries destroying their depth and playoff hopes hanging by a thread, signing Powers was the only logical move available. Whether it works out depends entirely on which version of Aerial Powers shows up, was the championship-winning scorer who can take over games, or the inconsistent veteran who's bounced around the league. Either way, Fever fans are about to find out if their team's desperation move was genius or just another chapter in their ongoing drama. The next 7 days will tell the whole story.